When I first started making Ponpai, I was extremely new to Godot. Really, I only learned how to use it so I could make this game. But now that I've had a couple months of experience, I figured that I should go back to some of my old code and make it more efficient for future use. If this is your first time on the channel, Ponpai is a tactical strategy game where you befriend monsters and have them join your team. If you want to know more about the game, the introductory video will be linked in the description. The first thing that I had to change was how I was spawning attacks. See, when you click one of the attack buttons, a node simply called attack gets summoned, and inside the attack is a list of different formations to take based on the name of the attack. I have it so each attack gives a special position for the attack squares to come in, and I previously wrote it like this. These coordinates were the exact position that the squares should take on the screen. For example, if the current Ponpai was standing dead center, position 1030 would be here, 309 -103 would be here, and 515206 would be down here. The issue with this is that the numbers were exact, so if I wanted to resize the battle sprites later on, I would need to go through every single attack and recalculate where each square would appear. So what I changed is that each position is counting how many tiles away it is, then multiplying by the tile size later. So position 10 would be right here, and position 3 -1 would be here. Now if I ever need to resize anything, I can just change the internal tile size variable, and everything below will adjust for me. I also went and streamlined items. Back when I introduced held items, I made it so each Ponpai had the entire list in their code, which is very long and very inefficient. Plus, if I wanted to change what a certain item does, I would have to make sure any instance of it is changed as well. So now I have a list of every item in the game, and the Ponpai have numerical values that tell you which item in that list they have. And once they're thrown into battle, or accessed through the team builder, they grab a copy of the item from the item list and use it as expected. And since I had to do all that, I applied it to the player's inventory as well. The first number is the ID in the item, so it knows which item to grab and show you. The second number is how many of it you have. Now that some of the item's information is being found externally, but the amount of item is still in the inventory itself, there was a bit of trouble getting values to update properly, but I got it sorted out. I've reorganized the Bestiary once again. Now they're in the approximate order I want them to be found in the finished game. Previously, I was simply sorting them in the order that they appeared in the internal enemy Ponpai list, which is just the order that I added them to the game. But now I have a separate list for that which I can change at any time. It's not only easier for me to change during development, but this means I can add sorting functions later, such as letting you rearrange them alphabetically. You may have noticed, but I added a few new Ponpai this time around. I was specifically adding a lot so I could add a scrolling bar to the Bestiary, but some of these new faces were still very tricky to add. Citizen has a complete immunity to any attack with a fixed range, which are the attacks that don't move with the Ponpai. Similarly, Scarnage has a complete immunity to debuffs. Neo's ability lets them cure a teammate's status effect when attacking them, which can either be a buff or an actual attack. That one was particularly hard to test because there's a very similar Ponpai, Neo with a completely different ability, and I was accidentally testing Neo for way too long wondering why the ability wasn't working. Moving on, we have the living arcade creature, Egglad. Their ability brings them back to life at half health after being defeated, which wasn't that hard to program given that I already had most of the work done with Grimsect and Dragard. But, and of course there's a but, I wanted Egglad's primary attack to be Jump Attack, which has a 25% chance of letting the Egglad move again afterwards. This is a completely new concept for the game, so I had to do some adjustments to make this possible. And that brings us to Chaot.exe. Their ability causes a whole bunch of traps, both good and bad, to appear on both fields at the start of battle, if Chaot themselves are up front to begin with. Way before I started doing these devlogs, I was trying to add all of the abilities I wanted in the game, before realizing that adding them all at once was a bad idea. Chaot's ability, Corruption, was one of those abilities that I had implemented already. But that was just pulling a random trap from a list within the battle stage's code itself, which wasn't very convenient. So I created a list of trap types within the trap node itself, so the trap can decide what it is if it needs to be random. And that's everything I've done. Sorry if this was a confusing devlog, it was more about fixing old code rather than adding new stuff, so talking about it was kinda difficult. If you want to try out the prototype for yourself, the link will be in the description. Otherwise, look forward to the next devlog, where I'll be adding a few miscellaneous features. Thanks for watching.